Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Illumineers Quest podcast, where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, well I have to say this because it's too funny not to start off here. We're filming this, or recording this, late at night on Saturday compared to when we normally do, kind of in the morning, and Jake is over here trying to wake himself up, slapping his face around to wake himself up, and thought it was hilarious and worth sharing, so...
Thank you for sharing.
No, so today's episode, we are going to kind of just do a Chapter 1 review. You know, this is probably the last episode we do on Chapter 1 stuff, because next week is, like, get into Chapter 2, so, like, the full-on Chapter 2 preview, like, you know, getting ready for the release that weekend. And so, yeah, just going to kind of have a retrospective on Chapter 1. We got a couple really good questions from a couple listeners, and so we want to cover all of that as well. But yeah, we're just going to kind of, you know, not only do like podcast kind of retrospective, talk about, you know, the community, the league, a lot of that type of stuff as well. And then just a little bit of like super teaser preview for Chapter 2.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, so we, as always at this point, you can find us at all of the normal locations, but we also have a TikTok now. You can find us on TikTok at Illumineers Quest.
We're not doing dances though.
No, so far we've done some like quick 60-second card reviews on TikTok. Haven't been doing super well, so we're going to try, you know, to expand out into new content on TikTok as well. But we have a TikTok at Illumineers Quest, YouTube Illumineers Quest, Twitter, and email at LorcanaPod, and then email at lorcanapod@gmail.com. And shoot us any notes if there's anything going into Chapter 2 you'd like us to talk about. That now would be the time to, you know, to get that on the slate. So, with that being said, let's get into it here. So, you know, first off, like I said, we did have some questions and comments from listeners. So Adam on X/Twitter asked if we could kind of dive into some of the terms. I think, you know, when we started off, we did a really good job on trying to make sure that we were defining all of the words that we were talking about. But obviously we've had a ton more, you know, listeners come on since then, and a bunch of new people, and don't want to assume that everybody has that same level of knowledge. And so a lot of it had to do around like deck terminology. So we're going to dive into that. So we'll make it a little quiz too. I'll give you a one that he asked about, and we can see if you know it or not. So okay. First one would be aggro. What does aggro mean?
Aggro is basically getting smaller cards out fast and questing before your opponent. It's basically just doing fast and aggressive.
That's correct, but aggro is just short for aggressive. Yeah, aggro just means like a really fast-paced tempo deck that you're playing to like really, like Jake said, get out ahead and quest fast and try to beat your opponent to the finish line. Basically racing to the finish line.
I mean, basically not even just TCGs, but every kind of game has an aggro.
Yeah.
It basically just means get out fast before your opponent.
Yeah, for sure. And then he didn't have this one on there, but there's mid-range.
So,
which is what I play, so I can probably define that a little better for you. So mid-range is like the kind of, you have a little bit of everything in your deck, and I'm, you know, for any experts that listen to this are probably gonna shoot me in the foot for the way I explain this, because I'm not even an expert. But basically, you have a little bit of everything. The deck that I've been playing on Pixelborn for like 6 weeks now is very mid-rangey. So it has a little bit of aggressiveness into it that you can get out and quest early, but then it has a lot of mid-range stuff with like the like Rockstar Stitch, you know, to like take over the game and to shift on into like in the middle of the game to like try to quest a lot and control the board at that point. I think of mid-range before like Be Prepared, you know, so like turn 7 or 8. Like once you get past the 7 or 8 like ink count, then that's where it really gets into like the next or late stage of the game. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, mid-range is you have a lot to do. You try to get a lot of board control. You try to, you know, manage the ink and the lore pretty aggressively. But also, if it does get into those later stages, you still have cards in your deck that can help you deal with other late game decks as well.
Yep.
Then I guess we'll stick it with the deck terms here. And so this kind of goes back to you. So a control deck.
So control deck is what I personally play, and basically take a card for Elsa, Spirit of Winter, for example. She's basically stopping her opponent from doing stuff, right? She freezes cards and exerts them, and they can't do something next turn. That would be like basic control. Basically, you're controlling what your opponent is doing in favor of what you're doing.
And I would also say is you're like controlling their ability to win the game or to quest, and in chapter 2, and we can get into this, is very much going to change the way that you win the game. But in today's terms, it's very much controlling your opponent's ability to quest. And so when I think of like control decks, obviously the Ruby Amethyst that you play is the big one, and the control cards in there are like Aladdin, Heroic Outlaw, Elsa, Spirit of Winter, which you mentioned, Maleficent, Dragonfire, Be Prepared. A lot of the cards that take opponents off the board before they have a chance to do anything.
I would even put Maui in there, the Rush Reckless.
Yeah, Maui.
He has this same kind of...
Yeah, he definitely can get opponents off guard. I think of like big control cards, though, are cards that keep them from even being able to quest or do anything. So the second they're played, you have a card that can take it out or that can stop it. Like Elsa doesn't take cards out, but it disallows them from questing their next turn. And so that's still a very much of you're controlling their ability to quest. Or challenge or anything at that point. So, and then lastly is meta, which I know the term of where this came from, at least in my world. I am a computer nerd, and metadata is basically just I'm boring you. I can see your eyes glazing over here. Metadata is data that tells you like what the data is. So like the best way to explain that would be like column headings, like in a spreadsheet, where if you have like name and then you have a list of people's names, or like first name and last name and then list of person's names, like those column headings that tell you what's in that field, like that's the metadata. And so meta is shortened and then, and used in a lot of senses as well in gaming and other, competitive environments like this. It just basically says like, what is the best deck or information that you can pull together to like win the game. And so in this case, the metadata is like the deck building that you do to win. So meta basically just means like what are the best / strongest decks.
Like when we use like the term meta deck, we could basically just replace meta with best.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially.
Or high tier, top performing.
It also has to do with how much it's getting played. Like that
Yes.
plays into some form to it. Maybe it's not the absolute best. It's just not as out there.
Or if it's I think played a ton is another good like side definition or secondary definition, because I would say like the really aggro decks, like your Emerald Amethyst or your Emerald Amber, or even I think Emerald Sapphire now to a degree, I think all of those aren't like the best decks out there, but I think they're still played a ton, and so they're very meta from that degree as well. So yeah, so that covers all of the comments on that we wanted to cover. So a little bit longer on that section, but I think it was all very helpful, hopefully. So with that being said, card of the week. Is it your turn or my turn? Honestly, we didn't even talk about this going into it, but...
You know what? Go for it. You'll finish the season off.
Okay. Well, I feel like I take most of them, but we'll go with it anyways. So, with that being said, I think just like really basically, and I'm going to kind of give you two reasons behind it, is the Maleficent 3-drop from Amethyst, the Maleficent Sorceress, who, her ability on play is whenever you play this character, you get to draw a card. She has been incredibly meta. This split or this season, this chapter. I think if you're running Amethyst, chances are 95% that she's in your deck. Is that fair to say? I haven't seen many, if any, Amethyst decks without her in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So she's extremely strong. 2 strength, 2 willpower. So she's not meant to quest, but with the friends on the other side, that also is draw 2 cards from Amethyst. She basically comes on the board, draws a card, next song, sings friends on the other side for 2 more cards. And so she's been like the most consistent card draw from chapter 1.
Yeah.
On the flip side, now that we are in the cusp of chapter 2 and we have over half the set that has been released at this point, there are so many card draw options now.
I have to say, like, and we'll get into this a little bit, but overall, and I'll just say it with card draw, like, I'm a little overwhelmed, like, with how many decisions there are for your specific, like, if you're going for card draw, lots of options. Which
is good.
If you're going for healing, lots of options.
Yeah, I think that, again, so the reason I chose this one for today is because it was super meta chapter 1. My expectation is that it's not for Chapter 2. Again, noob here, very not smart in the meta-defining decks, but I think they're, like Jake said, I think there's so many options.
So I could see this still getting played because you hear him turn it to your hand, then play it again.
That's a good point. I think there are probably some, but if that's the strategy you're going to take, why not just play Merlin Goat or whichever Merlin card it is that has?
Well, you could play it on top of that and draw 2 cards.
Yeah, you could. I mean, and again, I think there are options where it does get played. I think it's not going to be like a staple.
Yeah.
It's getting played every time because there are other really, really good options now to play within the card draw realm.
Definitely.
And just to clarify, Goat is the one that gains lore. Merlin Rabbit is the one where you draw a card when he enters and leaves play.
I'm sorry, we're going to always... we've gotten those wrong a few times already.
We have to get those right, yeah.
Which one's Crab? Crab is the one...
I just looked at that one, too. He's the support one.
Yes. Okay.
So that's kind of the recap of the card for Maleficent Sorceress. With that said, we'll move on to the next segment here and get into what's on our mind, league recap, and the news. The news is straightforward. It's just coming strong and thick now with anywhere from 2 to 6 cards a day, it seems like. Without getting into any specifics, because we kind of talked about a ton of them last week and gave a big overview on Chapter 2 stuff. We finally got some Zootopia cards.
Yes, we
That was
did.
big. We finally got Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
The last time we talked, did we have Great Mouse Detective? I don't think so.
No, I think we had Basil. I don't think we had anything besides Basil though.
Okay. I'll take
maybe
your
we
word
don't.
for it.
Maybe we did.
For it.
But regardless, we have a ton of Great Mouse Detective now.
It's like one of the it has a lot of
we
cards.
got Fidget, we got a song, we got a couple
Ratigan.
actions, we got Ratigan, of course. So yeah, I think the staples are all kind of there. The one we really haven't seen is Zootopia, which we have I think 1 or 2 cards from Zootopia, but we did get Judy, yeah. So we got 2 cards from Zootopia, but
no Nick Wilde yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no Nick yet, and there's no Sloth, which I think would be a fan favorite for
Flash,
sure.
get some Flash love.
Flash, 100-yard dash.
We gotta get that.
And none whatsoever for Jungle Book. We have Ka with the
Hypnotize and Shere Khan.
Yeah, and we have Shere
But
Khan,
no
which just
Baloo
came
and
out.
Mowgli.
No Baloo and Mowgli.
Or Bagheera, or King Louie.
Yeah.
Lots of opportunities.
Yeah, so there's still tons to come. There's been Sisu now for Raya and the Last Dragon, which looks like a fantastic card.
Legendary.
Most of the legendaries have been released from the set now. Yeah, so I think that's a lot of the news still, and if you're interested, the app, like we've talked about, has been more or less updated now. It has 88 cards from the set, and I think there's been 100 that have been released, so the vast majority of them are in the app. But
also follow us on Twitter, because you do some sharing there.
I share everything. Yeah, we'll shamelessly plug the Twitter again. If I'm not giving direct thoughts on it, I'm definitely sharing out other people's thoughts that I agree with, and so Lorcana Pod at Twitter. But yeah, that kind of covers the main stuff. I think this is kind of just a news episode, and so with that said, we can kind of just get into it. So to kick it off, we just kind of want to retrospect on our journey as podcasters. We started off. We know we've talked about this a little bit, but we started off. We've messed up a ton. We talked last time about our takes on the podcast. Mm-hmm. But just the background of it, we talked about messing up an episode. That was fun. We had to reshoot, re-record an episode, and that was, I think that probably happens to everybody new.
I hope so. Make me feel better.
Yeah, I know that there's a couple people on YouTube and X/Twitter that I follow that said they lost one of their episodes, and so I felt it hit right at home with me because of our loss on that one. But yeah, I think we've got a really good rhythm down. I think we have a decent chunk of episodes that we can do every chapter, so that we can continue to release good content, and we're continuing to build the audience, and hopefully that they can continue to help us with episode ideas. Mm-hmm. This episode, there's a couple more questions from Adam on X that we're gonna talk about later on here. So yeah, I think it's just been fantastic to see the behind the scenes rhythm that we've gotten in and getting all the content out and all of the stuff saved to just like copy paste all of the descriptions and titles and you name it. I mean, all the background stuff is more or less on cruise control now. It's just getting time together to film every week.
I mean, I think one of the most important things that luckily our knowledge has grown quite a bit, so we're able to share what I think are mostly good opinions.
Yeah,
on
we're
this podcast.
definitely learning, getting better opinions as well. The one thing I would say was definitely a miss this chapter, and it wasn't really our fault, is from a content perspective, the podcast was great, but we wanted to talk a lot about like trying new decks and like trying different things out and how our experiences with those are doing and what new cards we were able to pull and everything. Nobody's been, and as we've I feel like a broken record on this, but nobody's been able to find any product ever, so we haven't been able to do a lot of that just because we haven't been able to find any. So yeah,
it is what it is on that. Like we basically just be doing Pixelborn reports otherwise, and we don't want to be doing that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Pixelborn's obviously a good tool, especially if you can't get the cards or don't have the money to go buy a bunch, and it can be a really fun way to get into the game. But obviously, we're fans of the cards and the art and everything that goes along with it. The one caveat I do want to say, which I don't know if we've talked about or not, is you've opened 3 packs the last month at League. I think we've talked about this. Our league, the way it works is you pay entry to get in to play, but then you get a pack for it, and so it's like basically just like you're buying a pack to play that week, which we both love because you haven't been able to get any.
Yeah.
One of the weeks you got 2 legendaries from said pack, and then last week you got another, and then last week you got a Maleficent.
It was Belle,
Monstrous
Beast,
Dragon.
Maleficent were the 3 legendaries.
Yeah, and just so we're on the same page, that is 3 legendaries and 3 packs for Jake this last month. I have kept track of my pack openings from the league. I've opened 19 packs from going each week, and then 6 from the initial kickoff where we did like the random deck what you get from those 6 packs. I've not opened a legendary from any of those 19 packs. So
I'm sorry.
Jake is the lucky one, if you were wondering.
I'm sorry. I mean, I do feel bad, honestly, because I got one that I'm looking for, too.
No, well, I know I was a little annoyed at the time, but I genuinely am happy that you got that.
I could tell you were annoyed. You were like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, no.
No, I was good. Because I didn't want you to think I was like mad at you, and I wasn't. I was happy that you got the card. Especially since it was one that you needed for your deck. Like, that makes me super pumped because, again, I know how frustrating it can be to want to play something and not have all the cards you need. So I think that was just another cool tidbit to call out from some of that. But yeah, I think we've grown a lot. We definitely are not experts now. When we started, we said we were beginners. I think going into chapter 2, we're going to be a good voice on if you have questions about decks or any thoughts on what might or might not work. We can definitely give you a high-level overview of why we think it may or may not.
And give us a little grace towards the beginning. Like, let us feel it out a little bit.
No, but that's even the experts. Like, I think even the experts, it takes them a couple weeks. Like, if you think back to when we started, like, there wasn't necessarily, like, any real powerful decks at all. I mean, I think it took 3 or 4 weeks to really get in there. I think it'll be faster this time because there's already established, like, kind of, decks and cards. But I think it'll be quicker, but obviously things are going to change and we have an idea of what's really powerful. But that could obviously, shift a little bit depending on the way that the new decks are built. But so getting it, with that said, we'll kind of get into some of the cards, the deck, the whole set, the review. And again, so comments from Adam here on X, which were really good that we had kind of talked about a little bit anyways, but this first one we had not thought of, and it was a very fantastic question, so we thought to give it a little bit more time on here, which is what cards to stock up on when prices drop. So the cards have started shipping. Our local store hasn't got any yet, but I've seen tons of pictures from people tagging me on X and from other stuff on Facebook of local card shops getting them. So there's definitely more stock out there now, and prices, imagine, will start to drop. So what cards to buy when prices start to drop? What are your first thoughts?
I mean, my automatic first thought would be Rapunzel. I think that is the obvious one. She, at the moment, I believe, is the most expensive base card.
Yeah, still the most expensive legendary.
So my mind immediately goes to that. I can speak from experience. Playing with a full 4 set of Elsa is one of the funnest things in the game. So I always recommend that. Obviously the legendaries, like if you're hunting for a specific one, those are the ones that you're gonna want to go for. Cusco is a big deal. I believe is the Lilo. I think she was expensive.
She's rare. She was like $20 at one point. She's still pretty up there too. I'm gonna take a step back. I don't disagree with anything you said, but those are very specific to some of the decks that we play, and that some people may be playing something completely different, like Sapphire with the Hades. We talked about this a little bit when we recapped our tier lists of cards, and we've talked about it a few times in between, but the most powerful cards in the game are cards that have abilities that activate when you play, right? And so if you think about what deck you want to play or what inks you want to focus on, look at the cards that have really powerful abilities that activate on play. We made the mistake with Gothel. I know we've talked about that a bunch, and it's really funny to look back on that one, especially when your dad just showed us a deck that had Mother Gothel in it, and I was like, just take that out. Just do it. Just take it out.
Honestly, Jasper's a better play, but go ahead.
Yeah, so anyways, I think that if you can, boil down to what you want to play and then have actions / abilities that activate on play, like Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, Elsa, Hades, Infernal Schemer that puts one of your opponent's cards in the inkwell. It still banishes. It's a little bit of a tick there, but you're still banishing a card straight up. I think Belle is still pretty strong, but it doesn't activate on ability, or it doesn't activate on turn. She still has to quest for her ability to really take hold. So yeah, anything.
There's obviously a few exceptions, but for the most part.
So the expensive cards. So for all the legendaries, for sure. And then there's kind of 2 other categories, and then I'll let you kind of get really specific with ones that you like again. Anything with card draw, like Rapunzel draws cards and heals, so that's a massive one. That's why she's so popular currently. That activates on play, and she's card draw, which is massive. Same with Surfer Stitch. He has card draw on play. A little bit more of a qualifier there, having to have 2 cards on the board, but the fact that it's on play, you get to draw off of it. Those are both fantastic options because you're getting to card draw and keep your hand full. And then a little bit, not quite as important, but healing, I think, is another one that could, especially with the way that the game is kind of changing with this Chapter 2 stuff. Anything that has just another secondary ability that can really move your board or your game forward. And those are kind of the 3 buckets I have is, obviously any abilities that are on play, or any other abilities like Cusco and Ward that are always persistent on the board. Anything that can do card draw that's really powerful, and then anything that can heal or keep your board open and moving forward is kind of the place that I'm in. But yeah, let's get back to some specifics. We said Elsa, Rapunzel, Cusco. I think Surfer Stitch, Hades, John Silver. I think all of those kind of cover the legendary side of it.
I would even throw in Brave Little Tailor in there.
Yeah, I think he'll come to. He might even be sub 10. We just pulled it up. He's currently at $15 on TCG Player. He's been hovering around 20, and he's already down to 15. He very well could be sub $10. That sub $10, Brave Little Tailor is a steal for sure.
Yeah, if you don't have any, you get a full set for 40.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal.
Where a full, let's just say one Rapunzel's $50.
Yeah, and you get a full playset for 40. Yeah, so that helps you out. And then aside from the legendaries, looking at some of the other ones, again, I think that's really where it gets down to your play style and the decks that you're wanting to play. Yeah. But your Cuscos, your Lilos are like Jake had already mentioned, are both good ones. What else comes to mind for you?
I would just say I would say that there's got to be cards that no matter what comes out in other chapters are still useful. And the main card that I think is there's always things that can replace other things, but main thing with me is Be Prepared.
Be Prepared is a good one. That will never get old.
There's nothing. Unless there's a card that just banishes your opponent's board. then that's too OP. But I would say Be Prepared would be one that I would definitely stock up on.
Yeah, unless they came out with another song that cost $5 and was inkable that did the exact same thing, which obviously they're not going to do. Be Prepared will always be a staple. That's absolutely a good one.
I mean, and the reason I say that is because there's something that could do, be cheaper, but still kind of do Rapunzel's job down the road. There could be something that kind of does what Elsa's supposed to do down the road. There could be something that does Maleficent's job down the road. There could be something that replaces those. Be Prepared, in my mind, can't really be replaced.
Yeah, that's a very good call. And then just when we think about other good quality, super rare / rare cards, you have Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. I think she's getting kind of nerfed this go around with a lot of the resist stuff.
She is.
So that's a little bit of a nerf, but she's still going to be really strong. Rockstar Stitch, that's still a really good one. Maui, Ariel is still going to be really strong. There's more songs coming out, so Ariel being able to sing is going to continue to be really powerful. Let It Go from Sapphire is another really strong song that's kind of in that same vein as Be Prepared. I mean, being able to banish cards is going to continue to be really important.
I would say if you're going on this Emerald Prince John discard draw card, maybe I wouldn't necessarily go for any crazy card draw from the chapter 1. I think I'd avoid most, but maybe go for more discard cards.
Yeah.
It really depends on there's a lot of things that I wouldn't get in chapter 1 because of what's coming in chapter 2. That would make sense. Whole New World, I don't know, is as valuable as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think A Whole New World is always pretty situational because you could help your opponent out as you helped yourself out. But yeah, I mean, that kind of covers it because we're looking at the rares and super rares, and after those lists of everything we kind of just said, you're getting into $2 cards anyways, and so they might drop a little bit, but those are cheap enough now where you can really build out with what you wanted to currently before the prices dropped. And so, again, there's not a ton that are really keeping you or holding you back from being able to complete your deck, and so it's really something that has an on-play ability that's really powerful, or something that draws cards, and those are always going to be really strong, or has an ability like Be Prepared.
Or Heroic Outlaw, which, I mean...
He's always been kind of cheap because he was in the starter deck. He was in the
starter deck. That's also...
But...
you can, avoid those, or, definitely... I don't know what my point is, but continue.
No. Yeah, so that's kind of what you do. Just, those are the big themes, and obviously I think a lot of it boils down to the way that you want to play or the decks that you want to build. But, yeah, and then so kind of getting into the next step on, or the next, little side step on what to buy. Not necessarily singles, but just in general, what products did you buy? And we have a very strong opinion on one of the product lines, if you will.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
The booster pack box. What do you call them?
Booster? What do you mean?
Booster boxes?
Yeah.
They have a specific name for them.
Just you mean just where you get the 24 booster packs?
Yes, I know.
We call them booster boxes from Pokemon. I think they're called booster displays, but it doesn't matter.
That's where we live, basically.
Well, I was thinking something else, actually.
Oh.
I was thinking...
Trove?
No, unfortunately, this is a negative. And so now you know what I'm going to say. Is if you truly are planning on playing these cards in a league or taking them to a game night, as cool as the sleeves are, don't buy the sleeves.
Okay. I mean, I agree. Having said that, I still play with the sleeves.
I bought, I think, 3 packs of Mickey sleeves, and I've replaced every single card I had in them. The matte finish on those sleeves just makes it extremely hard to shuffle and to deal and to exert the cards on the table. And when you have the ink in your inkwell overlapped and you're trying to just exert one of them, it just makes it really hard. And it's unfortunate because they're kind of pricey. You can get 100 sleeves of just normal pretty standard black or green or blue sleeves on Amazon for like $1.50, and those are $6 for 65. And so it's just, I unfortunately, as much as I love them, those ones, until they change the quality of them, I just can't recommend.
Yep. I mean, I agree with basically everything you're saying. On a more positive note, I like the deck boxes a lot.
The deck boxes are great. I think they're very simple, but they get the job done.
Not the ones that come in the trove.
No,
not those.
The $7 deck boxes, or how much ever they are.
There's the Hook, the Mickey, and the Elsa.
And the future ones are going to be Sisu.
And Mulan?
I think so. I know that there's a few different like art styles for like, I don't think there's a Winnie the Pooh one, but he's on some of the stuff. But anyways, yeah, I mean, as far as the cards go specifically, so kind of getting back to the main point on like what stuff to buy, the only real options you have for Chapter 2 are troves and booster displays or individual boosters. You can't go wrong with any of that. Like, it's all just boosters at that point.
I mean, also, we don't know what's coming in the starter decks yet. We don't know what...
That's true. We can't really talk about the starter decks.
There could be some staples that are...
there's Gaston and Tiana, I think, in the Sapphire.
Yes, I believe you're correct. And then I think Merlin Shapeshift is in one.
Yeah. So none of those like really hit me home. Like that they'll be great. No. But we don't know what like rares they're gonna come with either. So yeah, the starter decks, especially if you're just getting into it like we did when we started with Chapter 1. Get a starter deck. It's fantastic to play with, especially if you get 2 or 3 of them to play with your family or your friends. Like, that's a great way to start. But if you are, at a league and you're trying to fill out your deck, definitely wait to see if the starter deck's worth it or not.
Yeah, definitely. One more like little product that I can't speak of as much as you can.
Playmat.
I think they look great. Like,
the playmats are fantastic. If you can get your hands on a playmat, do it.
I would say from like the non like card box products that add packs perspective, like just the accessory products, the playmats would be the best. I would say
for sure, hands down.
I believe the other one is the binder. Neither of us have
those
one.
Are fine. I mean, they're just really small. They don't hold a lot
they're
of
like
cards.
$20.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have a really cool themed binder, then go for it.
Yeah, but if you're doing it just to hold the cards, then you can definitely get cheaper binders that hold more cards. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I think that kind of covers that one. I mean, again, boosters, just get them. Like, I imagine that the stock is going to be getting a lot better here in the next month or so.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you're getting a single booster from a booster display or if you're getting a trove or you're buying the whole booster display. Just get it. Just get what you can. Doesn't really matter. So moving on to the next quick like news / topic here on the league recap. So we've talked about this a little bit, but we've got one more week left and league is over, and so we can kind of talk about it now. And there's a few different angles to talk on this one. So this is kind of going to be a few little things wrapped into one here, but. League recap. What are you first time we played, kind of kicking it back to the very beginning here. First time we've ever done something like this. We've now gone through the full deal. The last month, we've both been involved a bunch. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? Have you liked it? Was it what you expected? Yeah, give us your initial thoughts on the league and how everything went.
I mean, and I just like to start off from here. I've like never, me or you have never done anything.
No, nothing
like this.
Closely.
Like no, I would say like, I mean nowhere near. Like I've never played a game with a complete stranger sitting across from me. Like the closest thing I've done to that is play Fortnite with someone and teamed up with them. Like that's literally the closest thing I've done to that before I did this.
I would probably say the same for me.
And I mean for the most part we both loved it. I think.
It's been great.
Our specific community, and that's really all we can speak to, has been really welcoming and really, I mean, they've been super welcoming in helping us learn the game, and someone really helped me and you understand the game kind of how we do today.
Oh, it kicked off everything I know. Like, I would still be like a 4 out of 10, probably.
Yeah.
Without understanding
I completely agree.
So yeah, I mean, I would echo everything he said. I mean, I think it's been a ton of fun. It's been really great. That everybody has been super kind and thoughtful and helping and building the the player base here. Yeah, it's been really it's been everything we hoped for, I guess is the best way to put it. Again, with everything positive, there's always a little bit of negative, and I would say the negative is unfortunately just the player count. I would love if other people that are listening could comment if they're going to leagues what their like attendance looks like. When we started, I think there was a total of probably 40 that had come to like the first month of games. Maybe not every week the first month, but about that many that had either shown up for once or two of the weeks. On the second month, I think there was like 25. And on this month, there's been like 10. And so we have heard a ton of people saying it's just not fun without having the product available to like build the deck I want.
Because there is, like me and you even, and some other guys there have, we bought a lot of products towards the beginning. So our decks are a little bit more developed than a lot of other people, and so
but even then, like we don't have full decks. Like you have pretty close, but I'm not even close to the deck that I want.
That's true.
And so I just am making do with what I have because I want to go and get the pack every week, essentially. But yeah, I think that's the biggest unfortunate side of it, and hopefully the Chapter 2 release reignites everybody's desire to play it, and that there's more product available. And that with the reprints and the restocks that are coming, that there's plenty of Chapter 2 to go around, and there's more Chapter 1 that drop the prices for people to buy singles, and that makes it more available on shelves for people to get into it. So hopefully that takes care of a lot of those hesitations, and then it builds the local communities back up, because it unfortunately has been a little ghost towny the last couple weeks.
True. But I can just speak with quality over quantity. It's been, everyone's been really great, really nice.
Yeah, for sure.
We've had really good matches, really good games.
Yeah. I think I've won one every week. I usually go 1-1.
That's
so
usually same here.
So it's relatively even.
You're towards the top, I would say, in our probably top 5, top 4.
Yeah, I think I'm probably top 4, maybe even 3 or 4. Which again, this is attendance based. For for those who are playing in league or for those who aren't, you get stickers for coming, which are points essentially. They just use the stickers to count how many points you have. You get stickers for coming. You get stickers for wearing Disney merch. You get stickers for playing certain like theme decks. So I have a lot of based on just my attendance and what I'm playing, and I always wear my Mickey sweater. So,
which now we're getting points for what decks we bring and what characters are involved.
Well, they're doing that this time too.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just had to like tell them that you're playing something.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so yeah, we're definitely going to do that going forward too, on like making sure we're playing a theme deck to get the points for it. But the other cool thing I would say that had happened over the past couple weeks that I've really enjoyed is what I think the community is calling Street Rat, which is basically a commons uncommons only deck. And so if you or your friends are looking to play, but you don't have like the even style of cards, or even like you have a bunch of legendaries and your friends don't, just play a Street Rat deck. It's not near as in depth of a strategy perspective, but it's still really fun. You still get to enjoy the game and get to play with your friends. So.
It's as competitive, like you're all going to be pretty much evenly matched. So where it's more strategy based, not just, okay, I pulled the better card, I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
I would say it's still just as fun for the most part.
Yeah, especially if you're noobs like us. Like if you're not going in there to be uber competitive, to try to win every match, to drive everybody into the ground and, be at the top of the league, then definitely Street Rat would be the way to go. And if your local community / gaming store hasn't considered that, then bring it up, because that's how it became about from us, is that the players brought it up and said, hey, is this something we're all interested in doing? Because a lot of, it was very divided at the beginning. Was half the people had really good decks and they weren't having fun because they were stomping on everybody, and the other half of the people weren't having fun because they didn't have good decks and they were getting stomped. And so we kind of evened it out. I think we've done that for the past month now, and it's been good to kind of switch up the pace. We've brought both decks and played both decks sometimes and had fun with it. So
you're like, if you just want to know what you're seeing a lot of evasives, that kind of thing, more aggro style. I would say like aggro is probably like the more like competitive way to.
Yeah,
to
you don't
play.
really have any control cards like Be Prepared, or you don't have a ton of card draw.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have card draw, you're usually slowing yourself down because your opponent's usually just playing evasive and questing.
Yes.
And so again, there's not a ton of strategy behind it, but it's still really fun because you're on an even playing field.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the next notes that we have on here is kind of community review, which we've kind of touched into that a lot. I think and I already said this even a little bit too, but I just want you to expand on it. I'm hoping that Chapter 2 really brings back the community. Like those first couple weeks where there was like 15 or 20 people there was just so much more fun because there's more people to talk to strategize with, to get to meet and to know. The last couple times it's been the same 5 or 6 people and we all know each other at this point. And so it'd be fun to get back into the, learning and evolving.
Yeah, I mean, it like you said, you use this word correctly, like ghost town. It feels a little ghost towny. Especially the last league night was Halloween. There was me, you, my brother, and a new player who played for the first time.
We had never met before.
Still a good time. We still, got packs and stuff.
You got Maleficent, so of course it was a good time.
Hey, I enjoyed being there, but, it just, overall, it feels, and I think this has to do with people just not getting product and cards, but it just feels like the excitement has been sucked out a little bit. Lost a little bit of hype.
Yeah.
Overall.
And, I mean, just give you a little bit of insight into the podcast here. I mean, we were growing rapidly for the first, 6 to 8 weeks of the podcast, and it's definitely kind of tapered off, too. And so I think just, in general, the people's interest in it is waning, and because I'm hoping it's just because they can't get product. But, again, we'll see when Chapter 2 releases that hopefully that brings a lot of people back to it, because the reviews of the game itself, people that are playing, this is coming from people that haven't played before, people like us that haven't played before but are really into it now, all the way up to people that have played Magic for 10 to 20 years. Everybody loves the game and the mechanics and the cards and the art and the inks and the, you name it. I've heard nothing but great positive things about the game. And so it's not, a lack of enjoyment of playing that's hopeful, or that's hopefully not what's turning people away.
That's not what we're seeing at all.
Not at all. So,
I would say that the number one thing that I could give to Ravensburger to advance on would be maybe their media, like social media and stuff. I think if they could activate that and be a little bit more active, I think would be maybe number one.
Yeah, I think the past couple weeks with all these card releases, they've definitely done more of that, and they've started to get into more of the lore behind the scenes with, some of the background story, but they got to keep it going.
I would love to maybe even get maybe a behind the card, an artist, maybe background, something like that, just designing the game.
Yeah.
Something like that, just getting the media and maybe the behind the scenes people a little bit more credit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too. Okay, so to wrap this up here, we've talked about this a little bit, but just really quickly here as we go into Chapter 2, like we said, this is the last we're going to really focus on Chapter 1. So with that being said, we're shutting the door on Chapter 1. So one thought, one comment, what are you most excited for Chapter 2? You can be as specific as a single card. It can be as broad as new cards, new product, new ink, or new stuff to get, whatever, you name it. What are you most excited for?
Overall, it's synergy decks. And specific cards and decks that are all very working together. Very synergized. And now, to go even deeper, you can make a great Mouse Detective deck. You can make a Sword in the Stone deck.
Seven Dwarfs.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That is probably my favorite part, is that...
I like that a lot. I think that, we talked about that in our, wishes and hopes for the future on, theme decks / movie decks. I think given where we are currently and that, I love that ability and I like that they've done that and that they started down that path. None of those properties, really... or in my, pull my heartstrings.
Sword in the Stone? Come on, man.
I'm not saying that I don't like them. I really, really like Sword in the Stone. I really, really like, the Great Mouse Detective, but I just like when I think about it, I want like, I don't know. I mean, Aladdin. Like I want, and I know there's a ton of Aladdin cards, but I want a ton of like Aladdin Synergy, which I don't even think you could do because there's not enough characters. Or Big Hero 6, which we talked about a ton, but I want something like that. So what I'm going to use as mine, especially so I don't steal yours, is the new ways that you can get lore. You know, and I've definitely tweeted about this, but the first chapter, it was pretty much you quest. Like if you want lore, you quest with the like one off of like Aladdin, and there's a couple other cards that kind of do that too. But now you can get lore from questing, you can get lore from challenging, you can get lore from items, you can get lore from actions,
returning cards to your hand.
You can get lore from playing cards, you can get lore from returning cards to your hand, you can get lore from healing, you can get lore from like basically any action that you have that you can do. So it just keeps everything on your toes, and really changes the dynamic of the game, because it used to be I need to have a character on the board and quest them to win the game, and now it's like if you have an item on the board that like the Sorcerer's Spellbook and you quest for one, then the game's over. So I think that just the dynamics and the mechanics that they're bringing to the game, not really new mechanics I guess, but new uses for each of those mechanics within the lore realm are going to completely change the way the game's played.
I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's, like we were talking about even with the Maleficent card in our card of the day, there's cards that I think are just going to be completely replaced. There's cards that are just going to, there's going to be completely new ways to play in the game. Yeah. And it's going to be on us to adapt to it as fast as we can.
And on the flip side, if you feel like you're behind because you haven't been playing Chapter 1, or you haven't gotten your hands on stuff, or you haven't gone to Chapter 1 League, the game is about to get flipped on its head, and you are coming in at the perfect time. So
yeah, honestly, like I mean, you're missing out on just basically the beginning steps.
Yeah.
But you're coming in at just the right time. I would say that this is going to be probably the craziest shift from chapter to chapter in how the meta is going to change and how much this just difficulty overall.
It very well could, because we're never going to be at another point in time where there's so little cards. Like we're doubling the card size.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll happen again until the next, where they wipe the slate clean and they start with a new season. They're called chapters now, or if they start with a new season where they retire all the current cards and start afresh.
Yeah.
It won't be till then. So, yeah. I mean, I think that kind of covers it all.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, overall, Chapter 1 was a great experience. I would say my favorite time was day one release.
For sure.
Not saying that any of our other times have been bad. We've had some great games, great times just hanging out, playing the game. But multiplayer, but nothing will ever match the excitement of opening the first pack.
Sure won't.
Pulling an enchanted day one. There's nothing that'll ever match that. Hopefully we can get a little bit of that back with Chapter 2 release day. But overall, Chapter 1 has been an incredible experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only other thing that I want to shout out real quick, if you're still with us, we appreciate it. There will be more card unboxings now where you are getting product. We have our orders in, so there will be more card unboxings. There will be pack battles. There will be, booster display openings. So again, make sure you're following us on YouTube so that you can be, with us for all the shenanigans and not just the episodes. But gonna try to post some of our best pulls that we get on X and Twitter, and
I promise I'll do better at the pulling unboxing episodes this time. I promise.
So, with that said, again, thanks for following us through Chapter 1, and we'll continue on into Chapter 2, and we will see you next week. So, right. As always, thanks.
See you guys.
Bye.